Okay, there we go. We are live.
Cool.
Super. All
Hi,
right.
everybody.
Let's get started. Peter, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what are we doing? We're doing a three-part series right now, introducing Vincent, who's going to be our beyond expert panelist on everything that's going on here. And yeah, we're just going to talk all things PLG, starting with like, do we even want to do it? Is it healthy? Is it safe? But first, Vincent, do you want to introduce yourself to the crowd and maybe pitch something since we're here?
Yeah, we can start with an intro. I'll think of what I can pitch as well while I'm doing that. But yeah, my name's Vincent. Hi, I am the CPO at Dealfront. So I've been in the go-to-market software space for, well, since 2012, so about 12 years. Building my own company for about 8 years called FunnelFox, then moved over to product at ZoomInfo, and now at Dealfront, still in the same space. So worked with a lot of sales and marketing teams around how to build their go-to-market models. A lot of that was product-led as well as currently with Dealfront. So we have Dealfront is the result of a merger. We've merged pretty much a product-led business with a traditional sales business, and that was a really unique experience because both companies were scale-ups, so they were actually having the full motion, where you can really see why they're different and what that means for the organization for the go-to-market. So I decided to write a book about that experience and also about the things before. The book is called Product-Led Sales, and it's really about like how a company can combine any form of product-led growth with any form of sales. So whichever fits best, and I guess we'll get into some of that as we go into the conversation today. So great to be here.
Yeah, I think that's a spicy take, given today's environment, that you can merge any PLG with any sales motion. And no, I'm excited to hear about that, and I'm glad you pitched the book. That's what makes you our quintessential expert right now on everything. You've been down the roads of introducing PLG to a sales-led organization, doing an M&A between organizations. So yeah, this is going to be fun. Guru, what's up? How are you doing, buddy? Did you freeze on me? Guru. Did I freeze?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason, it has frozen on me. I am super excited to be here. Well, first of all, before I introduce myself, congratulations to Vincent. He's gone from a VP of product to CPO at Dealfront. I'm super excited that he is more happy since the last time I met, and that's a big win. So, quick introduction about myself. My name is Guru Raj. Mostly, I go by either Guru or GP. I'm the CEO for ThriveStack, which is essentially a self-service infrastructure platform enabling early stage and mid stage companies to go product led to begin with, and then eventually go add SLG on top of it. We are big proponents of start with PLG and then add SLG, and not the other way around. We've seen that in my past experience as well, where my previous company got acquired by Zscaler, which was a public company, 100% sales led company, and we struggled to add PLG on top of an existing, rather efficient, effective sales led motions. Most of our deal sizes were upwards of 100K, 200K, and the sales team would not want to touch anything which is less than 30K deal size. So it's not just the sales conundrum that we had to face. We also had to go face the engineering conundrum to go build, a ground up product where the end users can actually sign up and then go take it from there. We also had a big conundrum about the teams, the organization, the sales, the marketing, the engineering, and the product really not wanting to talk to each other. And there were 7 such products, as it was a large public company. So that's my foundations of going through this conflict in a large public organization that started getting me interested about product-led growth, more so because we started getting competed with very early stage small startups. They were taking deals away from us. The first month it was about 7 deals. That our sales team said, "Hey, there's already a competition. They are 1/10, of the feature sets or 1/20th of our feature sets, but the customers wanted to go ahead and do a self-serve, try, buy, and then start using the product." The second month was almost 20%, 30% more. And over the next 2 quarters, we started seeing an influx, of these early stage companies winning over the deals. So that became my thesis for ThriveStack. I'm so happy to partner with Peter and Vincent on this call to debate about to PLG and not to PLG. There you go. That's a quick intro.
You're
Peter,
muted,
you
Peter.
are on mute.
I'm just having one of those days. Everybody, forgive me. No, this is actually kind of fun because you alluded to PLG being conflict because of how you have to work across teams, but also as a great equalizer against large organizations.
Yeah.
I mean, we everybody has a different definition for PLG, and I guess that's where we need to kick off with what is your definition of product-led growth? And then Vincent, I'm going to toss that same question to you.
You want me to answer
Yeah.
first, or you want Guru to answer first?
Peter,
Yeah,
you want
so
me to go again?
go for it, Guru. You can go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Vincent. Why don't you take it over? And then okay, all right. Let me start it away. So I think there's many definitions, and when I was looking up, before this particular call, I asked ChatGPT, I asked Gemini, I asked Google, what is product-led growth? Interestingly, there's about 5 different takes I found. The first one was that OpenView says it's a business strategy, right? It's a strategy where the entire organization is working towards a goal where the product itself becomes the primary driver to acquire, to retain, and to monetize customers. There are other companies who are saying it slightly different. Someone is saying it's a growth motion, and it is primarily used for free trials. And it says free trial equals product led growth. Then there is a few other VCs who are talking about it's a go-to-market strategy and used by marketing teams to acquire customers instead of they doing content and do a spray and pray campaign. They will do a very specific content to get the users to come back and sign up to the product. So there's like so many motions, so many uh, definitions of what is product-led growth. In my particular viewpoint, once I look at all of this, I think it is an organization-wide strategy. It's a business model in general, where you start with product as product is the one which drives conversations with your customers. The customers are experiencing the value of the product without really talking to you. In whichever mechanism it might be a free trial, it might be a freemium, it might be, and Gartner now starts adding interactive demo to PLG as well. So be it. Regardless of that, the customers somehow discover the value of your product, and they don't talk to you. And I think that's a big deal. They get to understand, very likely what's the pricing plans associated, whatever that pricing plan, even the land deals of the pricing plans, and they start trying the product in which way. And from there on, the sales can probably take it on if there is a need for you to have a salesperson. So my definition is product becomes the driver for acquisition and probably even usage before the purchase.
Vincent?
Yeah, I would agree
Okay,
with a lot of that. Of course,
Vincent?
I cannot contest the AI lords in their answer, but I do have some things to add, I would say. So first of all, yes, I guess what's clear from what you just said, Guru, is like, yes, it can be implemented in very different ways in different organizations. Sometimes marketing owns it, sometimes product owns it. And I'm not here today to tell you which it should be because it depends, I guess. There, I have a preference, but that is not always the right way for that specific company. What we can say though is that this is a means to drive a customer through the buying journey. Like that's what it is in my view. What's important though to point out is that people often think when you're using product-led growth that that is the only thing that you're doing, that it's product only. And that's where I think nuance is required. So it can drive parts of the buying journey as well. It can just drive acquisition, which is common for free trials or for freemium kind of products or viral products, if you will. But it can also drive qualification, which is actually part of the sales buying journey, and it can help there. It can drive retention and activation after someone has bought something. It can drive upsell. Those are all different parts of the buying journey where, regardless of what else you're doing, you might be driving a full traditional sales motion to get new business and using the product to upsell. This is fine. There's no problem with that. And I think that's the way to look at this. It's one of the many tools in your growth toolkit, right? You can think of marketing, you can think of sales, partnerships, community, and products. Those are all ways that you can get buyers to go through the buying journey. The only thing that's special, in my view, about PLG is that apart from sales, it's really the only other thing that can actually close a deal, right? Everything else can just guide people in the right direction, but someone needs to take those payment details and actually, get the contract signed and paid. And I think PLG is really the only other option there that's widely used next to sales. So that doesn't mean, though, that that's what everybody needs to do if you adopt PLG, but it is one of the things that's powerful about it.
So, okay, I like that. And for me, PLG is just self-service product. Like I want to look at it from the customer's perspective because we've covered the business side of it. So it's a self-service product where education is loaded up front. You can manage it individually or as a team without human intervention. What else? What for a customer? If we've built a product and we have a customer looking at our product and we have a traditional sales motion, what elements do we want to look at in our PLG product to make it a good fit for this type of motion?
So it doesn't have to be self-service right away, right? Like I've spoken with plenty of companies that they only use the trial after having spoken with the customer. So it's inbound sales or even outbound. They'll start a conversation, they'll identify the use case, but because it's a complex product, they don't let people in. But then at that moment where they've decided, okay, this is the use case we want to go for, we're gonna let them in. So usage is definitely a core component, and I think one of the core principles also, right, of PLG is like you get people to experience, to use the product, but it doesn't have to be, even though it's common, it doesn't have to be that you let them in by themselves. Like that first part of the journey can also still be more traditional or different.
Yeah,
So
maybe if I can add, I I somehow tend to agree and disagree with Vincent at the same time. Is PLG a self-service product only? The answer is probably no, right? So PLG does not equate to self-serve, right? Pretty much most of the time. Um, can PLG include, interactive demos, or someone clicks on contact us, talks to sales guys, and the sales guys are sending some kind of a trial, right? Is that a PLG? I doubt it, right? So if someone has to go click on contact us, really talk to the sales guys, they're not discovering the value up front. Meaning PLG is not creating awareness. PLG is not educating the customer on what the potential value is. And I think that's the difference in my mind. If if the product itself can showcase that, hey, this is how you can solve your particular problem, however nuanced, however complex it might be a good starting point. And I think, Peter, you mentioned about usage. I've seen it both ways. Some people will go and say, hey, I'll do a self-serve. I will do a self-serve. For example, um, let me take maybe an example. Amplitude was not self-servable. I mean, they had a starter package, but someone would go and click on try, and they will go land up into some things, and then they will have, hey, please talk to the sales guy. They will talk to the sales guy, and the sales guy will say, hey, tell me your use cases. And over a period of time, they listed down the use cases and they created small interactive demos, and they will send out to the customer. After 2.5, 3 years, now they almost have the ability to go and click on the plan, start the trial, and the product itself now educates, hey, these are the various use cases, which ones you want to try, right? So it negates the need of a sales guy, in the beginning, where the customer's discovering the value. I think what Vincent was trying to say is, if you have to talk to a salesperson, in most cases, I've found that if the product is complex and they haven't figured out how to simplify it, that's when you need to have the sales guy or the sales engineer, because the product itself has been created extremely complex. It's not been built, for a self-servable or simplified onboarding, kind of a motion where the users cannot discover the value all by themselves, which then may proves the point that you have to have a sales guy for that. So I would rather say, if the product can deliver the discovery of the value, right, regardless of whether it is self-serve or not, right, that probably constitutes the core definition, wherein the sales guy does not have to go and say, give me a list of use cases. What's the specific proof of concept? What's the success criteria? That looks like. If that can be avoided and can be done directly by the product, I think it can be a good start.
We'll save my feedback on sales frameworks for a show that's not general audiences, maybe our PG-13 show. So can I do a quick distillation? What I'm getting here is that our now September of 2024, our Q3-ish, Q4 definition of PLG is that it's an experiential motion where the product participates in the customer buying journey. Can we say that? It's part of marketing. It's part of customer care. It's part of sales. Sales can use it to incubate not ready customers. Sales can use it for interactive demos, whatever it may be. Vincent, I'm loving the nod. Is it you good with that definition? Can we work with that, guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So with a big umbrella general definition like that, is it a good fit for everyone? And I'm throwing that out to the room. Whoever wants to start, go for it.
I would say no, it's not, right? And the question, well, the question before answering that actually is, what problems are you trying to solve, right? What are you trying to do? And next to that, what state is your business in right now? Are you currently having 10 million in sales revenue? Then the answer will be very different than if you are building a new business and there's no existing motion yet, or it's still very unproven, right? So then there's, so there's other questions around that we can get into, but generally, if you have an existing business, it is risky, right? You're putting your existing revenue and pipeline at risk if you switch suddenly to a different model. So that doesn't mean it's a bad fit. I think often actually it's a really good fit, which is why I wrote a book about it, right? So it's where you start using PLG to solve sales problems, right? So you're saying, hey, we need to increase the contract value of our sales reps, and we're going to do that by qualifying out the lower ACV customers and pushing them through self-serve and pushing the other ones to the sales team so that they can close larger deals. Everybody happy, right? Now, many customers or many companies that are in an earlier stage that are just building out their product or the experience, for them, I think a lot of it is around the onboarding, I would say, and creating that first experience. And there's not that much at stake in terms of existing revenue. So I think in that case, I would, in today's market, pretty much always consider PLG. I would always think about, like, hey, how can we capture that interest early? Because what we've seen in the market is that previously buyers started to do research on Google, for example, right? So we saw that that research phase before talking with the sales rep, people started to do their own research, and that has moved even now a step further, where people say, I don't just want to do my own research. I actually want to try this thing out before I even speak with someone, and that segment is growing because that's also a generational
Yeah.
thing to some extent, right? Um, so there's only a few cases in which I would say to be more careful, which is if you're getting access to highly sensitive data, if you're in a highly regulated space, if you're fraud sensitive, in those kind of cases, I would be more mindful. I wouldn't say no still. And I've know companies in those spaces that have been very successful, but there's also risk that you need to manage, right? But that is a small segment of the market. And for most other companies, um, I would generally think it's something worth looking at. Yeah, just as a first response to that question.
Guru.
Yeah, so I
Just
mean,
on it.
I generally agree with what Vincent is saying. But let me, I think Vincent started off with it may not be applicable to all, and each business has to take a careful look at where they stand, how they're running the business, what stage they are in, and then figure out. But I think ultimately Vincent came to a place where said, "Hey, maybe even start looking at it." While I agree to what Vincent is saying, I think because this can be a debate, let me go take a devil's advocate position, and maybe the pole position, if I would take, is PLG could be applicable to any business, even regulated industries, even contracts which were typical enterprise led, even to car manufacturing companies, even to refrigerator companies. And here's some examples. um, Car industry was, good old days. You go to a car dealership, look at the cars, drive it around, try before you buy. That concept was there anyways. But now you can go to Tesla's website and you can customize the car. You don't have to talk to a sales guy, and then go ahead and even click a purchase directly on there, and then get the delivery at your home, or if you want to go to the dealership. So that's a typical example where millennials and various other folks are now deciding to go buy even like a 50K 100K kind of a deal, by go online, research, talk to other owners, and click, right? Not necessarily talk to the sales guys. But it's been there for quite a long time. Refrigeration businesses, you have your refrigerators, washing machines. You'd be putting up them into Home Depot or Costco or wherever else it is. End users will come, they will go play around with opening the doors, check out various things, switch on the panels, and then a sales guy would walk in. Hey, there are five guys in the store who are playing with my refrigerator. Only one of them seems to be interested. And he goes up and approaches them. What do you think about this? And ultimately being able to go close a deal with that particular person. He may not necessarily have to go prioritize all of them, but someone who's like deeply interested, he finds out based on those signals. Even that's PLG. Regulated industries, I've seen that happening as well. For example, DRDO, you know, um, even FBI will go to Amazon Web Services, kickstart up, a few virtual machines, deploy certain apps, and say, hey, now we like what we can do with it. Then call up the sales guys and say, hey, we need a dedicated um, data center for something like this, and it takes a year or so. But Amazon will go ahead and deploy a dedicated data center for DRDO, right? In a sense, the try experience happens without the sales guys, and wherever that can happen, right? And if the audience is amenable to that, and I think PLG should be the first approach that you should think about. And in most cases, I think Vincent mentioned that more and more the age of the buyer, the millennials, are coming to the market. As more and more of them will come in, they don't want to talk to the sales guys. They want to experience. They want to talk to their peers. They decide on a community-based manner. So they will go and create a WhatsApp group and they, hey, who's using something like this, and make decisions like that rather than really talking to the sales guys. So I think wherever based on the audience. If your audience seems to want to go touch the product, feel it before they want to actually buy it, I think PLG should be considered as the first go-to-market strategy there.
So I'm liking that, and you you touched on the auto industry, and you know better than to do that when I'm on a call because I miss it, and I spent a decade there. When you're talking about these buyers, it's so Ken Ward had in his book Selling Sustainably refers to a certain kind of buyer that's a director, and they come into the situation fully researched. They've watched all the YouTube videos. They've interacted with however they could, social proof, other customers. So now we're adding another set to it where they have that hands-on demonstration. They can go in the documentation. They have full access. It's funny because it makes me think of that Parks and Recreation scene with Ron Swanson, who's this burly whiskey drinking guy going through a hardware store, and as someone's approaching to help him, he just looks over, he goes, "I know more than you," and continues walking. And Vincent, you had mentioned that well-established sales organizations aren't necessarily primed to just jump into PLG or make that major kind of pivot. I'm wondering if, based on that knowledge, like, don't completely change everything just because this is a new trendy thing. And now we've got a customer who possibly does know more about the product than the salesperson. Are we entering an era where sales motions maybe aren't needed at all when it comes to B2B SaaS? Like when you look at automotive, Guru, you're right. There's no negotiation. There's no haggling. The price is the price. Even when you go to a lot of salespeople are just order takers at this point, and there is no nuance of a deal. There is no emotion. So when we're looking at this and we're looking at that sales motion, are salespeople going to exist with product changing and leading the charge?
I definitely think so. I have no doubt, to be honest. I think I mean, I've seen comments on this before as well, of course, on LinkedIn and so on. But we have to realize that most of the revenue in the world, like in business, is still coming through salespeople by a long shot, right? Like it's nowhere near 50-50. Like that's not just going to change overnight. I do think the role will change. I think you're seeing that to companies that are doing actual, what was initially known as product-led sales only, right? So you do a trial and then you do an assisted motion, a high velocity sales, as it's also called. So someone who just checks in a few times and kind of just guides the user to success, to value, right? So that's a very different job than selling something, like pitching and selling, right? And there's different philosophies on even how you should do the latter if you don't have a product to show. But I think it's quite clear that when someone signs up and starts using your product, there's plenty of data that shows if you do a hard sell to those people, that actually doesn't land too well. They're not in that state of mind. They're actually in a different level, at a different level of intent. They didn't give their details to book a demo. They gave their details to get in and use it, right? And so if you can help them get value and get to where they want to be, then they're very collaborative and receptive of that typically. And so that's where the role is going more in this context, which I think personally is quite a healthy evolution in many cases. And so you even have companies that don't even pay commission anymore on those kind of roles, right? For salespeople, which is usually very common, right? So salespeople usually get their total comp is partly fixed salary and part is commission on the sales they make. And there's quite some well-known companies that don't do that. They kind of just see it's almost more like a customer success role, I guess, right? Like it's an onboarding role. The focus is to serve all customers as good as possible to get the value. And if you do that, then inevitably they will buy, right? And that's a very different way of interacting with a customer than what's happened so far. But I do not think that we can take the human touch out of all equations. So I think also when we are talking about larger deals where multiple buyers are involved, right? Or where there's high complexity in terms of setup, some of it is inevitable. You can build as good a product as you want, but if you have to start pulling together data sets from different systems and do some kind of matching and things there, it's, you know, you can make it easier, but at a certain level you will just need support there. So I do think there will always be a place for that, but it will just be a lot more customer centered instead of you know, coming from like what the selling business is trying to achieve.
So is that the tipping point? Something that requires configuration and setup with a manual intervention when it comes to switching from a customer-led model to a sales-assisted model?
So when you say customer-led model, you mean the
Like DIY. Like I go online, I click the buttons, I pick my paint color, and my car shows up 2 weeks later,
Mhm.
versus needing to go in and interact with someone and have them guide me through or help me or deal with finance or legal, the red line team, configuration, setup, backend, whatever it may be. Are those the exclusive requirements for sales intervention?
No, I wouldn't say so. So generally, if you again take the tradition, I'm saying traditional, it's only common since a few years, I think. But if you would take someone that signs up for a trial and then you do a sales assist on top of that, this is well, it's often a given that if you involve humans in the conversion will go up pretty much in all cases. But the question is, can you afford it? Is it an efficient go-to-market motion, right? Is the increase in conversion, does it justify the salaries you have to pay for the people to do that? This is, and a lot of go-to-market is about efficiency, is that can you actually do what you want to do at a price that you can sustain? People often don't realize, but this is actually the biggest challenge. If you'd have infinite money, anyone can be successful, but the challenge is to find something that scales efficiently.
All right, so Guru, as a founder builder, as a founder partnerships, as founder sales, as everything you're doing right now, and working with hundreds of startups, thousands of startups that are introducing this kind of motion, those efficiencies, are you seeing a consistency in it? Are you seeing an area where people could focus on it? How do you like it? What's the
Yeah,
drive?
maybe I think
Where
before
does it
answering
go?
that, yeah, yeah, I think, that's a great question, but maybe let me take what Vincent is saying, one or two steps further as well. I mean, I completely agree with the fact that humans are needed, especially for large deals, especially for multi-year deals, especially when you require some kind of a solution selling. That, hey, you know what, take this, customize this, do this, put all of this together, and we'll make it happen for you. I mean, it's the same product. It's just that it's, you have to sometimes you have to go configure it according to the customer. For example, we might say, hey, for customer one, you may not have to dig holes into their network to communicate because they're okay with it. For some other customers, they might want to do something else. So some customers will be different, and there'll be a group of them. But you need some kind of a human assist to be able to onboard, to be able to help them understand the value, especially for large deals, especially for deals which also span multiple departments. Right? For example, what Rippling did was just amazing. They would go and land a deal in the hiring part of it, and then the HR ops and all of that, and then automatically the finance ops will start getting taken care of, which is again a different buyer, different user. IT ops will get taken care of, and so on and so forth. So in each of these cases, you need a human to assist all of that. It's also very true that almost 80% of the revenue that any company generates will, especially at scale, especially after 10, 50 million ARR, will need some kind of a human assist, right? And because of the deal size, because of various things, people want to go not just look at the product, but also talk to some people, sign some paperwork, get the procurement guys in, get the control aspects, the RFP, a whole bunch of things will exist. So I don't think that's going away, right? Especially for scale. But you know, the job description might change quite a bit. If we were to look at sales guys earlier, they were creating the pipeline, looking at talking to people, getting the Rolodex of potential customers. They will go and essentially create a pipeline, and they'll work that pipeline. I think with the PLG or product assisted motions, in a which way, the pipeline can now slowly be said about almost 60 to 80% of the pipeline can come through the self-serve motions, or for that matter, even in interactive demos. Uh, so if you separate out the the selling part of it, the revenue generation part of it, and the pipeline, right, all three of them separately, the PLG motions can actually improve your pipeline, not so much as the revenue, right? For larger deals, but they will have so many customers in the pipeline that using product assisted sales, you'll be able to go close that. What I see out there, is that more and more of the early stage SaaS companies are considering PLG, but the effort to do PLG is a lot more at the early stage than effort to do sales led. So founders can go call someone, do a demo, right, and being able to go convince them. But to build the product in the right way, that the product itself can do, some part of your acquisition, some part of your, some part of your onboarding is very very difficult, to begin with.
And you had said
So
before that
I don't.
vaporware can't exist with PLG. So I get you
Yeah,
on that. I completely get it.
yeah. So I think that's one part where I'm seeing that there is pain in implementing PLG. The R&D costs are high. The people cost in figuring out what the customer journey is high, right? And even if they build it, the customers are not coming in because there's no trust, there's no brand recognition for that particular company, so no one is actually coming to the website and signing up to it. But there are, if you consider these are two separate things, there's a trust factor that can be built using your human assisted motions and the ease of product onboarding, making every customer being able to onboard very very smoothly. That can be the first goal of a product led growth motion. You focus on your engineering and your product to make it a lot more easier for the customers to onboard, but hoping that itself will drive sales, is a bad idea, right? I think that's where most early stage founders think that if they build towards PLG, their revenue will grow up, right? They don't have to deploy sales guys to do that. What they don't recognize is that these are two separate things. You invest in the product for at least about 4 to 5 quarters ahead of growth, but you invest in some kind of a founder led growth or sales led growth right now to be able to go, close the deals in the next quarter or 2 quarters later. So sales can be a leading indicator, leads, can lead up to about maybe lagging indicator to lag it by at least about 1 or 2 quarters. But product led growth can have a lagging indicator of at least a year for it to even kick in. And that's the part that's not generally understood.
And that's a year of people using the product and resources and an expense that you're putting out there. And I think everybody starts to think that PLG is free to do. You just put the product there and they don't remember how to keep it running. They have to buy gas for it. We're going to stick on the car thing, I guess. But this, once again, you've
Yeah.
affirmed our initial definition that this is an experiential activity where the product participates in the customer buying journey. Okay, we're still
Yeah,
there.
I completely agree with you.
There's something I wanted to add though to what I said before, because as I was thinking through what I shared, it might have given the impression that I think that there is a lot of companies for which, because I said, for example, a lot of the revenue, most of the revenue is still coming from sales-led businesses. And I think especially because of that, there's an opportunity here, because I am convinced that in 10 years from now, every successful SaaS business will be deploying some form of product-led growth, right? I'm not saying everyone will have a free trial or a free product or whatnot, but in some way, they will at the very least need it to be efficient enough to compete with others in the market. Again, coming back to that go-to-market efficiency, right? And that's where I think the opportunity lies. Like, as if we look at the timelines of how the SaaS world developed, like in the beginning, if as long as you were in the cloud, you were better than the previous on-prem thing, right? Then as soon as you became a specialist, because all the broad things, horizontal things existed, and we had specialist applications and all new functionality that came with that. Now all those categories exist as well. And then in each, there's a few competitors. And the next ways that you can differentiate is either through go-to-market or pricing, and often in a combination of the two. That's where a lot of the new competition is coming from, right? So you see a successful business, and then like that's charging for a user license, and then the next one comes in, and suddenly it's usage based, right? So they're just tracking what they're just charging them for certain credits or use of the product. And so that then attracts, again, a different type of customer, or someone who's more cost sensitive or less committed. But in many cases, allows that company to catch them earlier, right, before they're convinced, whereas the others might need more commitment. So there's all kinds of ways that can play a role, and that is really where I think you see the same on the AI side, right? Those AI first applications, there's been a wave of them that have come out. A lot of them most of them are PLG. They're usage first. You can try them, you can see how amazing it is, and then you decide to buy it. But most of them charge user licenses, right? So it feels like we're back in the old place. So there is, and I think Kyle Poyar wrote about this at some point as well, there is like an opportunity still for another wave of usage-based pricing there. And this, and if you look at, so that's on the pricing level. And then if you look at on how people can buy from you, that is the other part where companies can still differentiate. So in any industry where there's no product-led competitor today, it will come. It's a matter of time, right? The question is, if you're in the industry already, often companies are afraid to do that, and then it will maybe have an impact on their existing metrics. But the question is, how inevitable is it, or how soon is it going to be? Whereas if you're a new player in the space, then PLG is definitely something to consider, because it will allow you to at least often address a part of the market that might not be addressed yet. It has, though, also increased the standards on what's expected of the user experience, right? It needs to be a good, smooth experience. Like the definition of MVP, or minimal viable product, minimal sellable product, whatever people want to call it, the minimum thing you need to get to first validation or success, those standards have gone up, right? So you need to deliver something. It can't be that scrappy anymore, because there's just too many good things out there already. But still, like, I still think the PLG route generally is a big opportunity for any new player, but also for any industry where it's not common just yet.
So I like that you've talked about historically, especially when it comes to software. I mean, we all remember buying off the shelf. We would buy shareware, we'd download it, and there was a promise that if you keep using it, you're going to send me some money. But in that same category, there used to be something scary, which is kind of the original PLG of open source software. But over time, and you mentioned AI, so we've got, like, I run Llama. I have a ChatGPT subscription, but I don't run Gemini. I don't even use my ChatGPT. I run Llama locally. It's great. Stable Diffusion. There's a lot of tools out there that are completely open source, completely free, completely hands-on. They used to be scary because you had to be technical, and they've gotten away from that. These are those standards, and you get what you get. And like you said, competing on price, that's an auction. That's a race to zero. Is going back to sales and going back to just using product as a companion to the sales team. as opposed to the product itself selling itself as a standalone thing, getting away from my self-service, because I got shot down. You kicked me when I brought that up, and that's fine. Competing in the market when your competitors are doing PLG, when you've got open source alternatives, is making your customer service and your sales stronger than your competitor the distinct advantage, or is there something else? What could make you win in a PLG race to zero?
It can definitely be. Generally, how go-to-market works is people do something, a company does something, it works, everyone else notices that it works, everyone else starts doing it, it doesn't work anymore. Someone else found something else that works, and the whole thing starts again, right? So the amount of times that I've heard that cold calling is dead or email doesn't work anymore, and currently email doesn't work anymore, for example, but it'll work again at some point. It just doesn't right now. And then everyone stops using it. They go to the next uncluttered channel. And so that's just a natural thing. And it always returns in a slightly different form than it did before, right? That's worth mentioning with that. I think it's the same with what you just said. So if everyone's selling a certain way, there are also buyers who want to buy a different way. It's just like that. I don't know how big that group is. And it depends on what you're selling. Like if you are selling to a market where your buyer is not your user, for example, then PLG might be harder. I'd still see plenty of opportunity to do it. And I work with companies on that as well. But generally, let's say you're selling to a law firm, right? The lawyer is like the founder of the law firm. He's not going to use the software. Like they have typically they have a support system for that internally, right? And so that's the user, but the user is not going to adopt the software because they need the approval from the lawyer. So you're kind of in a catch-22. But there are companies who have figured that out. It's not impossible. It's just harder, right? And not saying it will be easy to reach a lawyer, by the way, if you want to sell something, but that's a story for another day. But I think that's that there's definitely always an opportunity for a different model. I'll leave it with that. Guru, over to you.
So Guru, this echoes something that you said earlier about and I'm paraphrasing, the non-interactive buyer. So the security and compliance team, the legal team, the finance team, everybody that's involved in this decision-making process, procurement, everybody that has an opinion in the process. It's starting to feel like PLG as a revenue motion, you need to have a very tight, focused vertical and user to be able to do it. And PLG is a sales assisted motion or sales assistant motion is when you're looking at these broader based products. Am I getting the right pickup there? What's your opinion as a professional?
So, Peter, could you repeat that question? For some reason, everything
Yeah, no worries,
flashed
no worries.
out, and then I lost
And
you.
I'll say it more succinctly. So we're kind of establishing that organizations in an enterprise buying process have a lot of people that don't touch the product, like the law office. And then in
Yeah.
PLG, if you're going to look at it for revenue and actual income and people paying for it, it's best suited for somebody that can just buy it off the shelf and use it themselves and maybe expense it versus using a gigantic PLG motion into sales as a stair step. Just have PLG available for sales to reference a product and a hands-on and a demo. Is you're nodding, so I'm picking up on this correctly.
Yeah. I think I kind of get the question. So let's say we have a product where the users and the buyers are slightly different. Maybe let's take some examples towards that. The users might go to the product, they will try it, right? And if they can be champions, they will go back to the buyer within the company, right? And they will probably persuade them to go buy. That doesn't happen that much, right? Especially in a B2B world, we think that the users will be the champions and they will go to the buyer. and they will convince the buyer. The users will figure out a way to say, how can I take the best out of the free trial? How can I do, get the best value from, let's say, a freemium thing and stop at it, right? But not necessarily go beyond it. What's getting interesting is that if you have this concept of these users and there are buyers, and there are two different things, which is almost 99% true for a B2B product. Uh, you need something to tell that, hey, these are the users and these are the potential economic buyer. And the typical sales and marketing tools would look up, right? You would do look up on LinkedIn, you would look up on various things, you might call them up and find out, hey, who might be an economic buyer, who should I talk to? But the tools are getting a lot more smarter, right? Now, like Perplexity and various other things. Hey, based on the user, you can actually query from this particular company who might be an economic buyer for something of that sort. So, if the products can use those as signals and then automatically, drop a note to the buyer saying that, hey, X percentage of your team is using something like this. Is it possible that we have a conversation with you, to make it a lot more common? What are the other problems that we can solve? So there is that push that needs to happen, and there are these new age marketing tools wherein you put in the product usage and the users list, and it'll go find out who might be the buyer and reach out to them. But I think that there's a separation. I think the market needs to evolve quite a bit towards that. But coming back to this, can you use PLG as a competitive strategy? Right? If you want to talk about that, in regulated markets, we'll ignore that for a moment. But uh, for some established players who only have an SLG motion, right? It's actually a great strategy for incumbents or newer companies out there who can go and say, I'm going to go trash this incumbent by having a PLG motion with a lower price point, maybe even have a smaller these things and enter into the market much faster, than the established player. So it's an out competition. The PLG can potentially outcompete land deals, and take market away from the SLG company. But I've
So
not seen the other. Sorry, go ahead.
the lumbering incumbent has the power of reputation and existing accounts and social proof, and the upstart has the power of getting a product out there and hands on.
In
That's
the
that's the
hands-on to the
competitive mode.
users. Yeah, yeah. I think, to give some examples, there's Launch Darkly, which is like a feature flag company. It was all sales-led motions, right? And Optimizely came in with the more of a PLG motion, where the developers, the product PMs, and the release managers will go, and they tried it, and then they will go back to the VP of engineering or VP of product that, hey, we would like to use this for launching. We want to use this for feature flagging, and that started taking market away from Launch Darkly, because Launch Darkly was purely sales led. They were going after deal sizes which were more than 30, 40, 50K ARR, whereas Optimizely can go land a deal at $200 a month. Within a year's time, they will go to very similar 15, 20K ARR. So PLG as a land GTM strategy works really well, especially when you have when you have an established player in the market who's not doing it, right? I think that's the point, that for early stage company, that's more of inspiration, that they can go build a product which closely mimics an established player, and I use it as a land strategy and take it over. We see that happening in the financial services. A lot of these financial services, hey, connect these bank accounts, and we'll give you, invoicing. We are seeing this happening in the cloud security and cybersecurity space. Hey, connect all of these things and buy it directly from Amazon Marketplace, and you have it. We are seeing happening at budget management. You go take this, and we'll connect to your Stripe or Chargebee, and will automatically get you and optimize your budgets, right? So that goes against the theory that some of these industries are well protected with sales-led growth. But if a PLG company, or if an upstart can figure out a way to enter the market with PLG motions and make it extremely easy, we've seen time and time again that they will have an advantage, not right away, but it takes about 1 to 2 to 3 years sometimes to be able to go start landing some of these deals and taking that away from the established players. So
So we're
yeah, I
again
agree
talking
on that front.
about runway. And Vincent, I'm going to lean on you because you're our resident change maker and expert in harmonizing these motions or introducing new ones. You spoke to accountability. The product's got to be able to stand on its own. You have to be able to support it. These are just standard things in PLG. Documentation has to be correct. And sales side, you can get away with not having most of that. You can sell a long game. And Guru, you had mentioned tools and other like features and things that you need. All this sounds extremely expensive. And you're talking about PLG being a long game, a 1, 2, 3 year sales cycle, which, if you've been in government or anything like that, you're pretty used to it. But so Vincent, is PLG regularly cost prohibitive, knowing all these things and knowing that everybody should start with a sales team? Because we kind of came to agreement on that 20 minutes ago or so.
So I think people think somehow that PLG is cheap, right? That's the misconception. It's not cheap, it scales efficiently. That's the difference, right?
Oh,
So
all right. There you go. We found the term. It scales efficiently. Awesome.
yeah, where in sales, you keep adding almost linearly sales reps and close deals with that if you have a successfully scaling model. With a well-built PLG product, what serves 100 people could serve 1,000 or even 10,000 people, right? And that's the difference in the two models, I would say. But yes, you said it before. If you need revenue in the next 3 to 6 months, then don't bet on PLG if you haven't started yet, right? But if you have the opportunity to think beyond that time frame, then likely work on PLG is what I would say, right? Because the one thing, I'm going to throw this in right before the end here, but the one thing we didn't speak about just yet that is also really crucial for existing companies that have 10 million revenue to 100 million revenue is churn, right? And churn in many organizations, no matter if sales-led or product-led, is often driven by, one of the best predictors for churn is often usage, or like the predictors for retention, better said. So if your customers are not using your products, then they are more likely to churn, which is a challenge for most businesses today. That means if it's easy to onboard and start using it, regardless of how you sold it, you'll be a more successful business, right?
So the legwork to establish a good PLG program guarantees that you have a good product. The guarantees you'll get renewals and keep customers regardless of how they were sold.
Yeah, I've said in the past, it's kind of, isn't that how we're supposed to be building product anyway, right? That's kind of what PLG is, something that's intuitive, that's easy to use, that gets people to value. So yes, and you could say it like that. But there's always the trade-off. Do I have the capacity to do all of it right now? As a startup, usually you don't. You have to make choices. You have to evolve the model. So, but as long as you keep chipping away at that and you keep making step after step, then I would think, regardless of if you're sales-led or product-led as your core model, onboarding is really like the core of PLG in the end, and it will also be more and more a necessity for a successful sales-led business.
Okay, so our viewer promise here, I guess we're doing PLG for webinars or panels, or I don't know what we're calling this. I guess this is a panel. We want to know when it works and when to avoid it, type of organization you have. So if you've got runway, you understand your product's good to go, you know how to articulate it, you've already figured out product market fit, you're great for an exclusive PLG motion or a PLG and sales harmonized motion. If you don't have those things, you're going to need them anyway, but you should focus on just the sales motion. Did we narrow it down on when to do it and when to avoid it?
If I can say, probably not. We haven't narrowed it, at least on this particular call.
Okay.
But I think we've given some indicators. I think it's also the matter whether the organization understands the lift that they have to do to create a product-led organization where product-led is essentially driving the business. If the organization does not have that DNA, right, no amount of coaching and external coaching, helps. They will have to probably go figure that out internally. But I think what Vincent said, and I'll probably reverberate that, is that you could use PLG across the entire spectrum, right? Maybe to even simplify it. In I think in 1990s, 2000s or so, we started talking about cloud or data center and then cloud, and then you can scale your product horizontally, right? So that was the big move there. I think with PLG motion now we can scale the business a lot more horizontally. We can make it a lot more efficient, right? But are you ready for something of that sort? I have found about four different plays or four different capabilities that the organizations would generally need. The first one is, as Vincent mentioned, you need to have a product which is simple to acquire, meaning someone to click, sign up, try, and start using it. But you also need usage information. You need product usage. Who's using the product? What features are they using? When are they dropping off? And things like that. You also need, you could also actually use it not just for activation, but you could also figure out a way to retain it or manage the churn. For example, usage is a great indicator towards it. Is the usage of a particular company dropping? Which means that in about a month or two or a quarter or so later, they'll probably go away, right? They may not even talk to you. So that could be a good indicator for some teams or roles like CSM to come in. So having usage to ballpark the management of your business is also a good idea. Can you
Okay,
use
so,
PLG
so you've
to
you've given us
run
two good
retention, right?
you've given us two good topics for the next conversations. One of them being around product utilization and
Probably, yeah.
product build. But then, Vincent, one that is one of my favorite topics that I know you'll be able to speak to better than anyone is internal evangelism, culture shifts in organizations, teaching sales that PLG will not cannibalize your deal. Quite the opposite, usually. So, what do you think about covering off on those the next time around? Because we're at time. We do have one question though. How about product enhancing salesperson's capability? I think this goes along with that sales assist that product provides. Does it provide a better tool and a better demo? I think we answered. Did we answer that?
I mean, we can cover it like once more to make sure. We touched on some parts of it, I would say, but we didn't address it maybe heads on. So yes, with the usage information you get through PLG, by having people while they're in your pipeline, they're using your product, you understand, are they getting value? What is their use case in the first place? What other stakeholders are involved? So yes, you'll have a lot more information. I think the main value though of it for the salesperson is not so much the tools, but it's the qualification to spend your time on better qualified leads. And that doesn't matter if it's coming through a interactive demo, or if they went through a trial, or if they did something else. But somehow the product will help you better understand which customers to talk with in the end, where to spend your time with the highest chance of success.
All right. So our mission was to figure out what is PLG. We kind of did that. When to do it and when to avoid it. We kind of did that. So I guess we do need to pick up a couple of additional conversations. I want to thank both of you for coming. I want to thank myself for coming, and for everybody watching, whether it be live or on YouTube or any other places that we're casting this. So thank you. See you in a week. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you so much. Go ahead and end the stream.